morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. We're about to enter a new round in what's become one of our favorite parts of the filmmaking process, speculating about the prospects of a big movie. And this is a big one. I'm talking about Interstellar, Christopher Nolan's follow-up to his Batman trilogy, and Matthew McConaughey's big role, kind of his reward for the career 180 he did, which culminated, of course, in that Oscar win. Now, Interstellar, of course, has been on the boards. So what's changed? Why are we about to begin the speculation in earnest? Well, a poster just dropped yesterday, and it looks very different than anything Nolan's done before. We'll get to that in a moment. But also the trailer is set to drop in front of Godzilla. Now, that in of itself, it both makes sense and is fascinating because it's Legendary Pictures doubling down. Godzilla is their film, where they're borrowing a lot of pages from Christopher Nolan's playbook with Gareth Edwards to try and do for Godzilla what they've done for Batman. And then also they are producing Interstellar. Apparently in their divorce from Warner Brothers, they got Christopher Nolan. However, Warner Brothers still has visitation rights, which they were so eager to acquire that they actually traded the rights, their involvement in the very lucrative franchises Friday the 13th and South Park. They gave that up so they could stay involved with Interstellar. We've talked a lot about how Warner Brothers under Jeff Robinov has tried to be a company of relationships, and they seem to be trying to continue that tradition. And I guess they want to keep a nice relationship with Christopher Nolan, or at least their hand in his pocket. And Legendary is allowing them to do that. And there are a lot of studios involved here, Paramount as well. It's a big production. All right, so poster's out. You can see it right here. And of course, we will talk about the trailer when it debuts sometime next week. And of course, I wonder if we'll have a heads up, because when the teaser trailer dropped, it just came out of nowhere in front of, I believe, The Hobbit, which was quite surprising, and they didn't even really, I think, release it in advance on the internet. Everyone had to play catch up over the weekend. I do remember seeing The Hobbit, like an afternoon showing, and I was just sitting there and I was like, "What's this? Damn, it's the Interstellar trailer," and knowing that I was going to be late to the party because they didn't really play by the new internet rules. But anyway, so at least we know it's coming this time around. So I think this poster, what's very interesting to me about it is that it's so Spielbergian. Steven Spielberg, of course, in his day was known for also having a realistic approach to storytelling, but in such a different manner than Nolan. Nolan has been very gritty, the harsh realities of mankind, whereas I think Steven Spielberg has really spoken to hope, and I think that seems to be what Christopher Nolan is trying to do here. I love the tagline here, and I think that's going to generate a lot of discussion already, and that is that mankind was born on Earth. It was never meant to die here. Ooh, I like it. It's not only Spielbergian, but it seems a little Kubrick as well. And of course, Spielberg and Kubrick had a good relationship and respected each other in addition. So it's always great to see these masters kind of come together and almost like a filmmaking Avengers. So I'm very curious about this. Of course, J.J. Abrams had mixed results with his Super 8 homage to Spielberg. Some people really stand by it. I kind of am like, I should just watch a Spielberg movie. But I am very curious about this. And I think the difference is that while there's some Spielberg sensibilities, you still see very much of Nolan, particularly in his casting. Now, of course, he's bringing out a lot of his previous actors that he likes to work with. Nolan does have favorites, like many directors. But by choosing Matthew McConaughey, I've spoken to this before, he's really underlining one of his casting strategies. And that's casting older leading man actors, the idols, the matinee idols, or so to speak, that have not been able to maintain their careers as they get older. A lot is made about actresses not being able to work past a certain age. Of course, the documentary Searching for Deborah Winger. But Christopher Nolan has been quite vocal about the fact that it isn't any easier for their male counterparts. Now, of course, a character actor can largely work forever, but if you're a leading man, it's more difficult. And you've seen that casting in his films with Rutger Hauer, Tom Berenger, etc., Eric Roberts. He really works hard to reach out and give these guys another chance. Matthew Modine, which I think might have been a step too far, but I think that Matthew McConaughey kind of fits that mold. I don't know how much help McConaughey needs right now, but I think this will help both of them. And I think people will be very eager to see what McConaughey does with this new street cred that he has. And I think that it's really going to help the film at the box office, just as Leonardo DiCaprio was a vital casting choice for Inception. But I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises. I had problems with Inception. I felt it was more of a psychological experiment than an actual piece of entertainment. But I'm very intrigued by this, because I think that while it borrows from Spielberg, it makes it its own. Nolan is still staying true to himself as well. And I think think it's a great tagline, and it's a throwback to, I think, some of the movie making that we've been missing. If Spielberg isn't going to provide it anymore for us, I'm glad that maybe Nolan will step up and do it. So it's very interesting. It's always interesting to see a director kind of play with his own established creative choices, his brand. So this is a risk for Nolan, and we'll see if it pays off. I suspect that it will, unless it's just absolutely awful, which is very unlikely. So I'm curious to what you guys think. Do you like Spielberg by the way of Nolan, or do you want just pure, undistilled Nolan? What do you think of McConaughey? Are you excited for him in this role? I think you could argue that McConaughey doesn't have a lot of gears. So do you think that what he does, his new gear that he's shifted into, do you think this was going to work well with this property? And also, what do you think of this tagline? What do you think of mankind was born on Earth? Mankind was born on Earth. It was never meant to die here. Are you intrigued by that? Do you think it's trying too hard? As I said, it's time to begin another round of speculation. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day is Emma Stone, who's coming off a big blockbuster herself, and just as Nolan is searching to redefine himself and, and just plain define himself outside of the Batman trilogy, which is something that's been very high on his to-do list. I think that's one of the reasons he left the Batman trilogy, because he did not want that to define his career. I think you're seeing Emma Stone, in a number of recent announcements, decide that she wants to move past her Gwen Stacy role. She's done with it, and she doesn't want Amazing Spider-Man 2 and her romance, which I think is very much ingrained in that media coverage and the image of the film, her real-life romance with Andrew Garfield. So she's actually moving into a lot of much smaller films, because I guess she feels she's made her blockbusters, at least for now. And it's interesting, because she's taking the place of Scarlett Johansson to some degree, who has moved full scale into blockbusters and doing quite well there. So maybe Emma Stone someday will return. But the reason I mentioned Scarlett Johansson is it seems that Emma Stone is Woody Allen's new Scarlett Johansson. Now, you might recall back in Matchpoint, he was quite effusive about her talents. This is when Scarlett Johansson was trying to get away from her sex pot image that the media had built up for her. And she just partnered up with Allen. And so they made a couple films together, and he would cast her again and again and said that she was his muse. Well, as I said, she's busy, so Emma Stone looks to have stepped into that role. She, of course, is starring in Magic in the Moonlight this summer, Woody Allen's annual summer Oscar contender, opposite Marcia Gay Harden and Colin Firth. We have yet to see a trailer for that, or, Woody Allen's, of course, very secretive about his projects, but I think, he's been on a roll lately, to some degree, except that When in Rome, I believe is the title of that. That was the one hiccup. That was the one bump in the road that just didn't work out. But anyway, so after Magic and Moonlight, she'll be doing his next movie. It was announced that she has signed on for that. And while that's exciting, the other bit of news in it is even more exciting, and that's that Joaquin Phoenix will co-star, obviously, I'm guessing, in the Woody Allen role. These days, instead of starring in his own movies, he casts another actor to fill in for him. I think that's one of the reasons Midnight in Paris worked so well, is that Owen Wilson was such an inspired choice. He was Woody Allen, but yet not. Owen Wilson didn't try and do a Woody Allen impression. Their personas meshed so well to create something new and exciting for both of them. And then I think that if you look at Joaquin Phoenix's film, where I think he was really snubbed in the Best Actor category for Oscars this year, that's almost like an audition, a practice round for a Woody Allen movie. And perhaps Woody Allen watched that movie and he's like, he's already playing me. Why not actually have him do the job for me? So I think that's very exciting, and this sounds like a great film. And Joaquin Phoenix could also use some, good PR working with Allen, because he's kind of, persona non grata with the Academy these days as well, because of the comments he made previously, which is largely, some people believe, why he didn't get that nomination for her. So perhaps Woody Allen can help him out and, maybe bring him back into the fold of, the Hollywood elite, which he's kind of on the outs on right now. So that sounds like a great movie. I hope it doesn't overshadow Magic in the Moonlight, but an Emma Stone, Joaquin Phoenix, Woody Allen movie just sounds delightful. So of course, Emma Stone is making those two movies, and she's also in the new Cameron Crowe movie coming out for Christmas opposite Bradley Cooper and Bill Murray. Very dynamic cast, and so I think it's very exciting to see her, what she has planned for her post-Spidey moves, her resume. What do you guys think? Is this the kind of role you want to see Emma Stone in, or do you like seeing her in a superhero movie? She did undeniably bring something different to the genre and made quite an impression. I think you could argue how will the Spidey franchise survive without her? It'll certainly be quite changed, and whoever, Mary Jane or whoever comes in as the next love interest is going to have very fashionable shoes to fill. But I'm curious as to if you like this change, and is this the kind of movie that you go and see if you're a fan of hers in the Spider-Man work? And if you don't go and see these movies, might you go and see them now that Emma Stone will star in them? And of course, also Joaquin Phoenix fans, do you like this choice? And do you think this will be another good matchup? I mean, I think Phoenix, if he's going to play, he could either really delve into playing Woody Allen and go for it, and he's quite the talented thespian. I think he can do something quite interesting there, or he'll be really bold and make sure that he makes the role his own. I think either way would be fascinating to watch. So that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day is let's touch base with Pitch Perfect 2. This is slowly coming together. It's grabbing some headlines, but just like the first movie, I think it really isn't on anyone's radar, except the fans of the film. It has quite a number of fans. The first film did very well. It was only made for only $17 million. It made $113 million worldwide, and its soundtrack did big business. I actually watched the film on demand. I didn't want to watch it. I was outvoted, and I was very upset that I had to sit through it, but then lo and behold, it won me over by the end of the movie, and I actually thought it was very good. And I'm glad to see that a number of the cast members are returning. You have Rebel Wilson coming back, Anna Kendrick, Brittany Snow, and also Skylar Astin. I thought that he was really good in the movie, and surprisingly good, had a great voice. I actually really liked him in the role. At first I was surprised that an actor like him would be in a movie like this, but then by the end of it, as I said, I was like, not only do I understand why you're in this movie, but you should be in this movie. Also returning is going to be Adam Devine from Workaholics. He was in the first movie kind of as like the jerk villain from the other team. Hopefully he'll get a bigger role here because he does have a bigger profile these days thanks to his work on Modern Family, which is actually how I know him best. He didn't really register for me in the first movie, Pitch Perfect, but I like him quite a bit as the male nanny, or the Manny, the second Manny for the Pritchett's on Modern Family. I think he was a much-needed booster shot for that show, which I think has been getting a little stale lately, a little repetitive. So those people are all coming back. But then also, of course, they added a very interesting name to the list, Hailee Steinfeld. I'm not quite sure how good her singing is. Of course, she was Oscar nominated for True Grit, but ever since then, while Emma Stone has a huge buffet of roles to choose from and can pick and choose and come up with a career strategy, I think Hailee Steinfeld has had a little bit of a rougher time and still hasn't really found a place for herself in Hollywood beyond very young Oscar nominee, which was kind of how she was defined at first. I'm not even sure how good her singing is, but it better be good because this is a very good group of singers, and of course singing is crucial to this film, not just because it's about singing, but as I said, those soundtrack numbers are a big component of its success. But of course, Elizabeth Banks will return in her very small, almost cameo role as an announcer at these a cappella contests, but she'll also be directing. And so I think it's very interesting. Oh, and there's one other cast. I'm just checking my notes here. One other person also is Chrissie Fit from Disney's Teen Beach movie, which actually made quite a splash itself when it debuted. Disney Channel is very successful with its programming. It really knows its target audience. And it'll be interesting to see her kind of upgrade to a similar movie, but yet a movie on the silver screen. So I think it helps everybody all around. So I'm curious. I've never heard of Chrissie Fit before. Are there any Chrissie Fit fans out there from who liked her in Teen Beach movie who are excited to see her join Pitch Perfect 2? And also, what do you think of Hailee Steinfeld? Is she a good addition, or is she maybe a little bit too similar to Anna Kendrick and they're going to cancel each other out? And are you excited to see everyone return? Do you think it's great with a sequel when everybody had such a good time making the first one and appreciated what it did for their careers that they were willing to come back again? We don't always see that, so it means that Elizabeth Banks as a producer at least, and hopefully as a director going forward, does a nice job putting a set together. All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now, the viewer question, you'll see why I picked it in a moment, is Jessie the Good Witch. And Jessie says, "Hi Grace, Jessie Jones from Ventura, California here. Longtime viewer, frequent commenter, and occasional question asker. Hoping this question will be the first answered. It is! I have noticed that in today's world of reboots, refranchises, and sequels, that Hollywood seems very preoccupied with classic popular movies. As you have discussed before, this is due to Hollywood not wanting to take risks, but by now I think the majority of reboots of classics are not appreciated and do poorly at the box office. My question is, wouldn't it be better to try and remake films that did poorly the first time that are still based on popular properties, for example, a Mario Brothers movie and the like? Thanks for the shows. I really love watching them every day and have even taken up saying, "Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News" in my regular life when I greet people. Here's your smiley face. Thanks, Jesse. Jesse, you won me over with that. That is so great. I hope it's true. I hope it wasn't just a ploy to get your question answered, but if it was, it worked. But I tell someone good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News for me today. I think that's just great. Some people wonder why I say it all the time in the show, since some of you watch it at different time zones. But I think it's the hook of the show. It puts us in the mood and the spirit of it. So I'm really glad that you appreciate it and that you've taken to using it in your own life. All right, so Jesse, great question. Of course, as you said correctly, Hollywood doesn't like to take risks. They want to be able to point to something successful and say, hey, now let's, almost use it as like a lemmings approach, feeling that everyone will jump on the bandwagon. It's a stamp of approval. That's why they like popular books, popular TV shows, and old popular movies. Another thing that helps them out is that for some reason, now of course, most of the people who watch this channel, I'm sure, aren't in that category, but a very large number of people these days aren't into watching old movies. I've heard some people say they don't like, we talk about not liking subtitles here on the show, but a number of people say they really dislike black and white films. Now, I strongly suggest you work your way past that because there are some spectacular black and white movies that you are missing. But again, it's a bit of a roadblock for those older films, so Hollywood likes to remake them. Also, sometimes they remake them when they can maybe add something different to the conversation. And I'm actually behind those kind of remakes. For instance, just the other day we talked about Green Acres being brought back, and I said that if they could add the current Wall Street versus Main Street discussion to that, it would be worth revisiting, and perhaps make it even stronger than it ever was before. So I think in that instance it warrants it. Now the reason they don't take an unpopular property, Jesse, is because I said a popular property is a stamp of approval. This is almost like a warning. So the media will say every time, the media coverage, gets away from the studio, obviously, and will point out what a spectacular flop the project was the first time around. That's why I think Hollywood, unfortunately, this is another reason, now that I think about it, I think what Hollywood really, sadly these days, doesn't like to do the work. Which means if a film didn't succeed, I think they're almost like they think it's bad luck. They don't want to touch it. They go get a stick and they throw it out the door of the studio. Instead of saying, get the microscope and saying, why didn't this work? There are such good elements at play here. How did we mess it up the first time around? Let's see if we can fix it. Unfortunately, you don't fix anything in Hollywood. If you break it, you toss it. And I think that's unfortunate because, as you said, I think there are good films out there that just didn't make it the first time around. For instance, that weren't successful. For instance, if I was going to remake a movie, I think The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray from 1997 was really funny and underappreciated. It was a gem. Part of me feels bad that it would have to be remade because Bill Murray was so good in it, but obviously something that time around didn't work. There was a problem, either in the marketing, perhaps Bill Murray wasn't a big draw at that point in his career, but something didn't click, and for that reason, a great script went unnoticed. So I guess that's my answer. I think it would be very difficult to greenlight, a property that was truly just not well done. In any way, it wasn't at all redeemable. But I think maybe it would be worth for Hollywood to set up in their development divisions one person or two people who would look at old films and see if there was anything salvageable in the library. I mean, they already own the rights to it. Why not see if they can find a diamond in the rough? So I think that would be a great idea. But as I said, these days Hollywood just doesn't want to do the work, even with new films. They're very formula heavy because, again, they're risk adverse. And you would think doing the work would limit the risk, but they also try and spend as little money as possible because they have to spend so much when a film does go into production. So, and also they never trust their own ideas. It's really a town of consensus to some degree. But you know what? With the popularity of television doing so well, I have hope that someday, and maybe someday soon, Hollywood, the film industry can be broken of this habit. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for your question, Jesse. Everybody, I hope you'll write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.